The morning sun barely peeked over the rooftops as he walked along the quiet street, his backpack slung over one shoulder, a tired but determined look on his face. Life had never been easy for him. He was a single father, juggling multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Every day was a careful balancing act, between work, bills, and raising his little one, who was still too young to understand the struggles around them. He often felt like he was walking a tightrope, one misstep away from everything collapsing. Despite all the pressure, he never let his child see the full weight of his worries. When he returned home in the evening, he would switch from exhausted provider to loving father in an instant. Bedtime stories, playful teasing, gentle encouragement, all of it became his way of showing that even in hard times, life could have small moments of joy. That morning, like many others, he was on his way to pick up an extra shift at a small delivery job. He had left home early, hoping to beat the rush of traffic and secure a little quiet time before the world woke up in full force. The street was still mostly empty, save for a few early commuters and the occasional dog walker. As he walked, he kept his eyes on the road ahead, thinking about groceries, rent, and the mountain of responsibilities waiting for him at home. Then, something unusual caught his attention. By the side of the road near a curb, a woman was kneeling beside a car, her hands working desperately at a flat tire. She looked stressed, clearly struggling with the task. Her phone was in one hand, which she kept glancing at nervously, as if trying to call for help. The moment froze him in place. Normally, he might have just passed by, lost in his own problems, but something in her expression made him stop. He walked over slowly, trying not to startle her. "Do you need some help?" he asked, his voice gentle. The woman looked up, relief washing over her face. "Oh, yes. I've been trying to change this tire for almost half an hour. I'm not very strong with it." He nodded. "It's okay. Let's get this done together." Despite his own exhaustion and the busy day ahead, he felt a strange sense of purpose. There was something grounding about helping someone in need, something that reminded him of who he wanted to be. Not just a provider, but a good person. They began working on the tire together. He could see that she had the basics, a spare tire, a jack, and a wrench, but it was clear she wasn't used to handling such tasks. He instructed gently, showing her how to lift the car slightly with the jack and remove the lug nuts. The conversation was light at first, small talk about the weather and how her morning had gone. But slowly it became more personal, though still respectful. "You're very kind to stop," she said once the tire was halfway off. "I don't usually ask strangers for help, but I didn't have a choice this time." He shrugged, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Everyone needs help sometimes. It doesn't matter who you are. I'm just glad I can do it." For a moment there was silence, broken only by the occasional clink of tools and the hum of distant traffic. In that quiet, he noticed something about her. She carried herself with a confidence, a calm in the face of frustration that was unusual. Most people in her situation would have panicked or been overly nervous, but she seemed composed, almost aware that someone would eventually come along to assist. As they worked, he learned a little more about her. She talked about having a busy life, always on the move, constantly handling responsibilities that left her little time for herself. There was no boastfulness, just honesty in her words. He shared a bit about his own life, too. Not the hardships in full detail, but enough to paint a picture of a man doing his best against the odds, raising a child alone, and juggling work after work. She listened attentively, nodding, offering small words of encouragement that felt genuine. Finally, after several careful turns of the wrench and some teamwork, the spare tire was on. The car was ready to go. She stood back, brushing dust off her hands, and looked at him with a smile that was equal parts relief and gratitude. "I can't thank you enough," she said sincerely. "I don't even know your name." He laughed softly. "Names aren't always important in moments like this. Helping someone, that's enough for me." There was a pause. She studied him, as if trying to understand why someone like him, clearly tired and busy, would take time out of his day to help a stranger. There was no pride in his actions, no expectation of reward, just simple kindness. In a world where so many people looked out only for themselves, that stood out. She offered a few dollars, insisting she pay for his time. He refused, shaking his head. "No need for that. Just promise me you'll be safe out there." The woman laughed lightly, a sound that seemed to brighten the early morning air. "You're unusual," she said. "Most people would have driven past. Most people wouldn't have stopped. He smiled, shrugging again.
Maybe. But the world needs a few more unusual people, don't you think?
There was something in that moment, a connection, a brief crossing of paths, that neither of them could fully explain. For him, it was just a simple act of helping someone. For her, it was a reminder that even in the midst of her busy, successful life, there were people whose kindness ran deeper than the superficial gestures she often encountered. As she prepared to drive away, she paused and looked at him once more. "You've done more than just change a tire," she said softly. "You reminded me that kindness still exists." He waved her off, trying to downplay the significance, but inside, he felt a small flicker of warmth. Moments like these didn't happen often, and when they did, they were quietly powerful. Helping someone, being helpful without expectation, it wasn't about recognition or reward. It was about holding on to the good in the world. Even when life was hard, she drove off slowly, giving a final wave while he watched from the sidewalk. As the car disappeared from view, he turned back toward the path leading to his next job, feeling an unexpected lightness in his step. For the first time that morning, his mind wasn't consumed entirely by bills, errands, and exhaustion. Instead, it lingered on the simple human connection he had made, fleeting though it was. Little did he know that one act of kindness would set off a chain of events that neither he nor she could have anticipated. Sometimes the universe works in strange ways. Sometimes helping someone change a tire on a quiet morning can ripple out into something much bigger, something life-changing. And for both of them, this was only the beginning of a story that neither would forget. He continued on his way, unaware of who the woman really was. He didn't know that she had wealth and influence beyond his imagining, that she was accustomed to people treating her differently once they knew who she was. To him, she was just another human being in need, and that was all that mattered. That simple mindset, seeing people for who they were, not for what they had, was a rare gift. And it was that gift that unknowingly would bring them together again under circumstances neither could predict. After that morning encounter, life went on for him as it always did. Work, errands, and the endless responsibilities of raising his child filled every waking hour. Yet, for reasons he couldn't quite explain, his thoughts kept drifting back to the woman with the flat tire. Her calm confidence, the way she had thanked him so sincerely, even her gentle smile, it lingered in his mind. He couldn't understand why a simple act of helping someone would leave such an impression, but it had. That evening, as he returned home after a long day of deliveries, he found his child waiting with a small handmade drawing, a colorful scribble meant to depict the two of them together. His heart swelled, as it always did, at this little reminder of why he worked so hard. He hung the drawing on the fridge and hugged his child tightly, letting the exhaustion melt away for a few precious moments. The next day, he returned to his usual routine, delivering packages in the early morning and spending the afternoons catching up on unpaid bills and household chores. Yet life seemed a little lighter. Maybe it was the memory of helping that woman, or maybe it was the small satisfaction of doing something purely for someone else, without expecting anything in return. Either way, it had given him a tiny spark of hope in the midst of constant struggle. Meanwhile, the woman he had helped was also thinking about that morning. For someone used to wealth and influence, it was rare to encounter genuine kindness, without any expectation of reward. Most people, when they found out who she was, would either be overly polite or act differently, subtly hoping for some advantage. But he had treated her as if she were no different than anyone else on the street. That simplicity, that honesty had touched her deeply. A few days later, she found herself driving past the same area where her tire had gone flat. She remembered the man who had stopped to help, and a small, impulsive thought crossed her mind. She wanted to thank him again, not just for the help, but for reminding her that kindness still existed in the world. So she took a detour, parked her car near a cafe, and waited, hoping for another chance encounter. It wasn't long before he appeared, walking down the street as usual, carrying his backpack and looking a little worn from the day. She called out gently, and he looked up, surprised to see her again. "Hey," she said with a smile. "I didn't expect to see you again so soon." He smiled back, a little shyly. Life has a funny way of bringing people together sometimes. She gestured toward the cafe. "Would you like to sit for a moment? I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee just to say thank you again." He hesitated for a second. It wasn't often that he had the luxury of sitting down for coffee, especially with someone who clearly had more money than he could imagine. But there was something in her tone, sincere and unassuming, that made him nod. Sure, why not? Inside the cafe, they ordered simple drinks, coffee for him, tea for her, and found a quiet corner to sit. The conversation started with small talk, just as it had during the tire change, but soon they began sharing more about their lives. He spoke about his child, his struggles to make ends meet, the constant juggling of work and home. She listened intently, nodding, occasionally asking questions that showed she truly wanted to understand. You do so much on your own, she said softly. It must be exhausting. He shrugged, a little embarrassed. It is, but I do it because I have to, and because I want to. I want to make sure my child has a better life than I did. She smiled, admiration in her eyes. That's really admirable. Most people wouldn't keep going the way you do, not without giving up at some point. For him, it was strange to hear someone so genuinely praise him without expecting anything in return. Most compliments he received were polite or fleeting, but this felt sincere. It was as if she saw him for who he truly was, beyond the tired exterior, beyond the struggle-filled life, and acknowledged his determination and heart. As the conversation continued, he noticed she wasn't talking about her wealth or status. There were no mentions of business ventures, expensive cars, or luxury homes. She spoke as if money didn't define her, as if her success was just a part of life and not something to wield over others. He respected that, even though he had no idea how true it was. At one point, she leaned forward slightly and asked, Have you ever thought about what it would be like if someone believed in you the way you believe in your child? He laughed softly, unsure how to answer. I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about it. I've been too busy trying to survive. That's exactly it, she said gently. Sometimes all a person needs is a little faith from someone else. Not money, not advice, just belief. He looked at her, feeling a mixture of curiosity and caution. There was something about her words, something that felt like an opening, a chance for something different, something better. But he couldn't let himself hope too much. He had been disappointed before, and life had taught him to be cautious. Still, as they continued talking, he found himself laughing more freely than he had in weeks. She had a way of making him feel at ease, of creating a space where he didn't have to worry about bills, responsibilities, or judgment. For a brief moment, the weight on his shoulders seemed lighter. By the time they finished their drinks, the sun was beginning to dip in the sky, casting a warm, golden light through the cafe windows. They stood to leave, and she extended her hand. I really mean it when I say thank you. That morning you reminded me that simple kindness still exists, and that's something I won't forget. He shook her hand, feeling a little awkward but sincerely moved. I'm glad I could help. And thank you, too, for reminding me that people can notice the little things you do, even when you think no one is paying attention. They exchanged smiles, and then she left, driving off into the evening. He watched her car disappear, feeling an unusual mix of hope and wonder. It was strange, he thought, how a simple act, changing a tire, could lead to a connection that felt so meaningful. Over the next few days, he couldn't stop thinking about their conversation. It wasn't just her presence or her words. It was the way she had looked at him, the way she had seemed to understand his life without judgment. It made him reflect on his own actions, on the importance of kindness, honesty, and persistence. He began to notice small ways in which he could make life easier for others, even in small everyday moments. And for her, the memory of that day lingered as well. She thought about him often, wondering about his life, his struggles, and how he managed to carry so much responsibility with such quiet strength. She realized that wealth and status had never given her the same sense of fulfillment she had seen in him. The fulfillment that came from dedication, love, and doing the right thing, even when no one was watching. Little did either of them know, this was just the beginning. Their paths, which had crossed by chance on a quiet morning, were about to intersect again in ways neither could predict. What started as a simple act of kindness was slowly unfolding into something that could change both of their lives forever. For him, it was a quiet reminder that life sometimes rewards the good we put into the world, even when we least expect it. For her, it was a lesson in humility and connection, a reminder that the most valuable things in life cannot be bought or measured by wealth. As the days passed, both of them carried the memory of that encounter in their hearts. It was a small but powerful bond, one built on trust, respect, and human kindness. And though neither of them could foresee it yet, that bond would soon lead to opportunities, growth, and transformations that neither could have imagined when they first met by the roadside that morning. And so, life continued, ordinary yet quietly extraordinary, with the promise of new beginnings waiting just around the corner. The days that followed their cafe meeting were unlike any he had experienced in a long time. Life for him was usually a predictable rhythm of work, errands, and caring for his child. But that brief encounter had stirred something inside him. It wasn't just curiosity or intrigue. It was a sense that the world could still hold unexpected kindness, even for someone like him, who had learned to survive on grit and determination alone. One afternoon, as he was finishing up his shift at the delivery job, he received a message on his phone. It was from the woman he had helped, the one from the roadside. He hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should reply. Part of him felt that life was too complicated already, too full of responsibilities and struggles. Another part, however, felt a spark of curiosity and warmth. He decided to respond, simply saying hello. To his surprise, her reply came almost immediately. She suggested meeting again, this time for a short walk in a nearby park. She wanted to talk, she said, not about problems or errands, but about life, perspectives, and the small things that often go unnoticed. When they met, he noticed the difference in her demeanor. She wasn't in a hurry, wasn't distracted by calls or messages, and wasn't projecting an image. She seemed genuinely present, as if she had chosen to step out of her world for a little while to truly connect with another person. They walked slowly along the path surrounded by trees and the soft hum of early evening life. As they talked, he learned more about her life, though not in the way one might expect. She didn't dwell on wealth, power, or achievements. Instead, she spoke about challenges, disappointments, and moments of doubt, the struggles that come even when life seems perfect on the surface. She shared stories of times when she had felt lonely despite being surrounded by people, when she had longed for authenticity rather than praise, and when she had wished for someone to see her for who she truly was. He listened carefully, realizing that beneath her polished appearance was a person with feelings, vulnerabilities, and experiences not unlike his own. It struck him how easy it is to assume wealth or success means a life without hardship. In truth, he thought, everyone faces challenges. It is how they respond that defines them. When it was his turn to share, he spoke more openly than he had in a long time. He told her about his child, the exhaustion of juggling 2 jobs, the constant worry about bills, rent, and groceries, and the fear that he might not be able to provide everything his child deserved. He didn't speak of this to complain. He simply shared his life as it was, hoping for understanding rather than pity. She listened quietly, her gaze steady, and occasionally offered words that felt genuine and supportive. "You have more courage than most people I know," she said softly. "It's not just the work you do, it's the heart you put into it. That's rare." Her words touched him in a way that surprised him. He had grown used to people judging him by what he had or didn't have, by appearances and superficial measures. Hearing someone recognize his character, his values, his dedication, felt like a gift. It was a reminder that being good, being kind, and being honest had significance beyond immediate survival. As they continued walking, the conversation naturally shifted to lighter topics. They laughed over small stories from their pasts, exchanged observations about the neighborhood, and shared favorite books, movies, and simple pleasures that brought them joy. In these moments, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: ease. He didn't have to pretend, didn't have to impress, and didn't have to hide behind a facade of composure or toughness. He could simply be himself. During their walk, she casually mentioned that she often enjoyed meeting people from different walks of life. "It's refreshing," she said. "Most people you meet are either trying to impress you or get something from you. But meeting someone who acts kindly without expectation, it's rare, and it leaves an impression." He smiled, a little awkwardly. "I never thought about it like that. I just try to do what's right." "That's exactly it," she said. "You do what's right because it matters, not because it benefits you. That's something most people don't understand." He felt a quiet pride, tempered with humility. He didn't consider himself a hero or remarkable in any grand sense. He simply did what he could each day to survive and care for his child. Yet her acknowledgement made him realize that even small, ordinary actions could have meaning beyond immediate outcomes. They sat down on a bench under a large oak tree, the setting sun casting long shadows across the grass. For a moment, neither spoke, simply enjoying the calm and the presence of another human being who seemed to see them clearly. He noticed the subtle way she studied him, not with judgment, but with curiosity and genuine interest. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but certain. "I hope you know something. Life has a way of testing us, of pushing us to our limits. But sometimes the people we meet at unexpected moments, they change the course of our lives, even if we don't realize it immediately." He looked at her, unsure how to respond. Her words felt significant, as if they carried weight beyond their immediate meaning. "I hope so," he said finally. I think it's important to believe that good things can happen, even when life is hard." She smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Yes, and sometimes those good things come from the smallest gestures. A smile, a helping hand, a few moments of genuine care." He nodded, thinking back to the morning he had helped her change the tire. That single act, simple and unremarkable at the time, had led to this conversation, this connection, and this sense of shared understanding. It made him realize that even the smallest moments of kindness could ripple outward, affecting lives in ways he might never see. As the evening grew darker, they reluctantly stood to leave. She thanked him again for meeting her, for listening, and for being genuine. He felt a strange mix of gratitude and anticipation, grateful for her presence in his life, yet curious about where this connection might lead. In the following days, their interactions continued, sometimes brief, sometimes longer. She would check in with messages asking about his child, his work, or how he was doing. He found himself looking forward to these small exchanges, which reminded him that life had moments of connection and warmth even amid struggles. Yet despite the growing bond, there was a sense of mystery about her. She never boasted about her life, never flaunted wealth or influence, and rarely shared details that might seem extraordinary. But there was an unmistakable confidence, a calmness and a subtle elegance in the way she carried herself that suggested she had experiences far beyond his own. One afternoon, he mentioned his struggle to fix a leaking faucet at home. Without hesitation, she offered to help, insisting she had a little extra time that day. When she arrived, he was struck by the practicality and efficiency she displayed. Not someone used to delegating everything, but someone who could roll up her sleeves and work alongside him if needed. "See?" she said with a smile as she tightened a pipe. "Some things don't require money or fancy tools, just patience and the willingness to try." He laughed, shaking his head in amazement. "You make it look easy. Most people I know wouldn't even attempt this themselves." "That's because most people don't try," she replied. "They assume it's too hard or beneath them, but nothing is beneath anyone who's willing to learn and help." The more time he spent with her, the more he realized that she was different, not just in circumstances, but in perspective. Her wealth, whatever it might be, seemed secondary to her values, her curiosity, and her respect for others. She treated him as an equal, listened without judgment, and offered encouragement instead of pity. That evening, after she left, he sat on his porch, reflecting on the growing connection. For the first time in years, he felt that life might hold more possibilities than mere survival. He thought about his child, the hope that he could provide a better future, and the realization that sometimes help and guidance could come from the most unexpected sources. And somewhere, far from his modest home, she too reflected on him, on his quiet strength, his dedication, and the sincerity that shone through every word and action. In a life filled with complexity and power, she had found something she had been longing for, a reminder that genuine human connection, honesty, and kindness still existed. Neither of them could have predicted what would come next, but the seeds had been planted, the trust established, and the bond growing. Life had a way of moving in unexpected directions, and soon, both would discover just how transformative a simple act of compassion could be. Life for him had always been a series of challenges, one after another, leaving little room for hope or surprises. Every day was a balancing act, delivering packages, running errands, making sure his child had meals and a safe place to sleep, and trying to stay afloat financially. Yet since meeting her, he had begun to notice subtle shifts in his own life. Her presence, her kindness, and the way she genuinely listened to him had planted seeds of confidence he hadn't felt in years. One rainy afternoon, he was walking, home after a long delivery shift, exhausted and soaked to the bone. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt this tired. He trudged along the familiar streets, thinking about the bills he still had to pay and the groceries he had yet to buy. Just when he felt like he could sink into discouragement, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from her. "Are you free for a quick meeting? I have something I'd like to discuss with you," the message read. He paused, staring at the screen. Part of him wanted to ignore it. After all, he had learned not to expect much from life. But curiosity won over hesitation. "Sure," he replied. "I can meet for a short while." They agreed to meet at a small park, one that wasn't far from his home. When he arrived, he found her sitting on a bench, holding a simple notebook. She greeted him with her usual warm smile, and for a moment, he felt a sense of ease wash over him. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as he sat down. "I've been thinking about you a lot these past few days, about your life, your dedication, and the way you handle everything with such quiet strength. It's rare to meet someone like you." He shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to respond. Praise had never been something he was used to, especially from someone who seemed to have so much. "I just try to do what I can," he said softly. "It's not always easy, but I do what I have to." "That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you," she replied. "I've seen your honesty, your integrity, and the care you put into everything you do, not just for yourself, but for your child. It's inspiring, and it made me think I want to offer you an opportunity." He blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. An opportunity from her? He had no idea what she meant. She smiled as if sensing his hesitation. "I know this might sound strange, but I want to help you. Not charity, not a handout, but a real chance to improve your life. You've proven to me that you're capable, hardworking, and honest. I'd like to offer you a position at one of my projects. You won't be doing it for me. You'll be doing it for yourself, for your child, and for your future." He felt a rush of emotions, surprise, disbelief, and cautious hope. He had never experienced anything like this. Most people he met either ignored him, judged him, or assumed he was struggling because of laziness or failure. She was different. She believed in him, and that belief itself felt like a lifeline. I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've never had anyone offer me something like this before." "Then say yes," she said gently, "and give yourself a chance. You don't have to decide right now, but I want you to know that the opportunity is real and it's yours if you want it." He walked home that day, with a mixture of excitement and fear. Could he really step into a new world? Could he accept help without feeling like he was betraying his independence or pride? He knew this could be life-changing, not just for him, but for his child. For the first time in a long time, he felt the possibility of stability, of relief from constant worry. Over the next few days, he thought deeply about the offer. He spoke with friends, colleagues, and even neighbors, though cautiously, because this wasn't something he could easily share. Every conversation led him back to the same conclusion. This was a chance he couldn't ignore. It wasn't about wealth or status. It was about trust, opportunity, and being recognized for the person he truly was. When he met her again to accept the opportunity, she greeted him with a bright smile. "I'm glad you decided to take this step," she said. "I've seen enough in you to know that you won't waste it. You'll work hard, you'll learn, and you'll grow, and your child will benefit from that as well." The position she offered wasn't simple, but it wasn't overwhelming either. It matched his skills, gave him a chance to learn, and provided the financial stability he had long hoped for. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was barely surviving. He felt like he had room to thrive. During his first days in this new role, he discovered something unexpected. The work itself was fulfilling, but even more important was the trust and respect she showed him. She treated him as an equal, valued his opinions, and encouraged him to take initiative. It was unlike any environment he had ever experienced. For once, He didn't feel judged for being a single father, for working hard without formal education, or for having a life filled with struggles. Instead, he felt seen, appreciated, and capable. At home, the impact was immediate. His child noticed the difference too. Less stress, more energy, more time for play and laughter. He could afford better meals, school supplies, and even small treats that had once been luxuries. The sense of relief and stability slowly replaced the constant anxiety that had weighed on him for years. Yet the most profound change wasn't financial. It was the realization that being recognized, respected, and supported by someone who truly believed in him could transform not just circumstances, but self-perception. He began to believe in himself in ways he hadn't allowed before. Meanwhile, she watched him navigate this new phase with quiet satisfaction. She wasn't doing this for attention or gratitude. She was doing it because she had seen his character and knew he deserved the chance. Her generosity was subtle, practical, and empowering. She never imposed herself or her wealth. She simply provided the opportunity and trusted him to make the most of it. One afternoon, while they were reviewing progress on a project together, she commented, "I've seen a lot of people in my life. Some are talented, some are lucky, some are smart, but very few have the heart and determination you have. That's why I wanted to give you this chance. Not because I have to, but because I know what you're capable of." He felt a lump in his throat, unsure how to respond. "Thank you," he said simply, though the word carried the weight of years of gratitude, struggle, and relief. It was during this period that he truly began to understand the ripple effect of kindness. What had started as a simple act, helping her change a flat tire, had led to a connection, a mutual respect, and ultimately, an opportunity that could change the course of his life. He realized that no act of compassion is ever wasted, even when it seems small or insignificant at the moment. As the weeks passed, he grew more confident, more capable, and more hopeful. His child noticed too, often asking about the new projects, the fun work days, and the occasional small outings they could now afford. For him, each small victory, financial stability, personal growth, and a sense of respect was amplified by the joy of seeing his child's life improve. And through it all, the bond between him and her deepened, not as employer and employee, but as two people who had met under extraordinary circumstances, recognized something meaningful in each other, and allowed that recognition to create positive change. There was no pretense, no power struggle, no expectation beyond honesty and effort. He knew that life would continue to have challenges, and that nothing would be perfect. But for the first time in years, he felt a sense of security, possibility, and self-worth. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was growing, learning, and living with hope, and somewhere she reflected on the same truth from her perspective. She hadn't just offered an opportunity. She had witnessed the impact of recognizing and supporting someone's potential. In doing so, she had also been reminded of the value of humanity, trust, and authentic connection. Helping him hadn't only changed his life, it had reinforced her own understanding of what matters most in life. Together, they were stepping into a new chapter, shaped not by wealth or status, but by respect, trust, and the belief that small acts of kindness can grow into life-changing opportunities. The flat tire that morning had been more than an inconvenience. It had been the first step toward transformation for both of them. And although neither of them could see the full path ahead, they both sensed that this was only the beginning, a beginning filled with hope, growth, and the quiet, powerful force of human connection. Life had begun to change for him in ways he had never imagined. The opportunity she had given him wasn't just a job. It was a chance to rebuild his life from the ground up. Every day brought new challenges, yes, but also small victories that slowly added up. His confidence grew, his skills improved, and he started to see possibilities that had always seemed out of reach. At home, the transformation was even more visible. His child noticed the difference immediately. No longer did they rush through meals or bedtime, constantly worried about what might happen next. Now there was laughter at the dinner table, small celebrations for completed school assignments, and evenings filled with stories, games, and quiet moments together. He could finally afford little treats, ice cream on sunny days, small toys for special occasions, and even the occasional trip to the park without worrying about money. These were simple things, but to him, they were proof that life could be better than survival mode. The relationship with her continued to grow. but it remained grounded in respect and trust rather than dependency. She visited occasionally, sometimes to check on the project, sometimes just to see how he and his child were doing. They laughed together, shared stories, and occasionally worked side by side on small tasks, like fixing things around the house or planning future projects. Every interaction felt natural, genuine, and uplifting. One afternoon, while he and his child were working on a small woodworking project in their backyard, she stopped by unannounced. She watched them quietly for a moment, smiling as she saw the father and child laughing over a misaligned wooden plank. "You two make a good team," she said softly. "It's wonderful to see the joy in both of your faces." He smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond gratitude. "Thanks. It hasn't been easy, but we make it work." "You've done more than make it work," she said, her eyes steady on his. "You've built a life full of love, patience, and resilience. That's rare, and it's beautiful to witness." He felt a lump in his throat. Words often failed him in moments like these because it wasn't just about what she said. It was the recognition itself. The acknowledgement of his struggles, the affirmation of his efforts, and the sense that someone truly saw him for who he was, not just for his circumstances or his financial status. In the following months, his confidence and stability continued to grow. He started saving a small amount of money each month, something that had always seemed impossible before. He was able to pay overdue bills, repair things around the house, and even plan for small future goals, like saving for his child's education. The constant stress that had once defined his life was gradually replaced by hope, planning, and the knowledge that he had someone who believed in him. Through it all, he remained humble. He never forgot the days of struggle, the nights spent worrying, or the moments when he had felt helpless. Those memories kept him grounded, reminding him of the value of every opportunity and every act of kindness he had received, and he made sure to pass that forward whenever he could, helping neighbors, offering small acts of assistance, and showing the same generosity to others that she had shown to him. One day, as they were reviewing progress on a larger project she had invited him to participate in, she spoke in a serious but gentle tone. "I want you to know something. What you've achieved so far is remarkable. You've taken this opportunity and turned it into growth, stability, and strength. But I also want you to know that this is just the beginning. You have potential far beyond what you've ever imagined, and I believe in you completely." He looked at her, a mixture of gratitude and humility in his eyes. "I don't know what to say. I never expected any of this. I just did what I had to, and somehow it's led here." "That's the point," she said softly. "Life has a way of rewarding those who act with integrity, compassion, and courage. You didn't ask for anything, you didn't expect anything, and yet your actions, your honesty, your kindness, your dedication, brought you here. That's why this works. That's why I wanted to give you a chance." He sat back, letting the weight of her words sink in. It was rare in life to meet someone who not only recognized your struggles, but also actively helped you overcome them, without expecting anything in return. It was humbling, empowering, and inspiring all at once. At home that evening, he reflected on how much had changed since that fateful morning with the flat tire. Back then, life had seemed like an endless series of obstacles, each one threatening to push him further down. Now life was different, not perfect, not without challenges, but filled with possibilities, hope, and tangible growth. His child, his greatest motivation, was thriving, and he could finally feel that he was building a future worth living for. The bond between him and her had also become a source of comfort and inspiration. She had shown him that wealth and success didn't define a person. Character, kindness, and resilience did. She had trusted him, encouraged him, and offered him a chance to rise, and in return, he had met her generosity with integrity, humility, and effort. It was a partnership not of money or status, but of human connection and mutual respect. One evening, as they were sitting in the backyard watching the sunset, his child curled up beside him. He thought about how far they had come. He remembered the exhaustion, the worry, the endless nights wondering how to make life work. And he thought about that single moment, the morning when he had stopped to help her with a flat tire. It seemed almost impossible that such a small act could have such far-reaching consequences. Yet, it had. That moment had led to conversations, trust opportunities, and ultimately a transformation of his life. It reminded him that life often moves in unexpected ways. That kindness and integrity can ripple outward to create changes far beyond what we can imagine. She watched him quietly for a moment, seeing the reflection of determination, humility, and gratitude in his eyes. "You've come a long way," she said softly. "Not just in circumstance, but in character, confidence, and vision. It's incredible to witness." He smiled, a mix of pride and humility in his expression. "I couldn't have done it alone," he admitted. "Everything I've achieved so far, it's because someone saw me, believed in me, and gave me a chance. And you took that chance," she said. "You worked for it, and you've earned every bit of it. That's what makes this story remarkable. Not just the opportunity, but your courage to rise to it." As the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, he felt a sense of peace that had been missing from his life for years. He knew that challenges would come again. Life would never be without difficulties. But he also knew that he had the strength, support, and resilience to face them. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living, thriving, and building a future filled with hope. His child yawned and snuggled closer, and he hugged them gently, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Life had shifted in ways he could not have imagined. A single act of kindness, a simple decision to help a stranger, had transformed not only his own life but the life of his child as well. And somewhere, she too reflected on the journey. She had given an opportunity, yes, but the transformation was a collaboration. Seeing him rise, seeing his child flourish, and witnessing the ripple effects of integrity, hard work, and courage had reminded her of the power of human connection. Wealth, influence, and success could open doors, but kindness, trust, and recognition could change lives in ways money never could. Together, they had discovered a truth that neither of them could have anticipated that morning on the roadside. Life's most meaningful changes often begin with the simplest acts of compassion, the smallest gestures of care, and the quiet faith we place in one another. As he tucked his child into bed that night, he thought about the future, about possibilities, dreams, and the life he could now build. He realized that true wealth wasn't measured in money alone, but in love, connection, trust, and the courage to rise above life's challenges. And in that quiet, hopeful moment, he understood that the journey was just beginning. Life would continue to have trials and obstacles, but with determination, integrity, and the support of those who believe in him, he could face anything. The flat tire that morning had been more than an inconvenience. It had been the first step in a story of transformation, hope, and the extraordinary power of kindness. The story had come full circle. What started as a simple act of helping someone in need had grown into a life-changing opportunity, a deeper understanding of human connection, and a lasting bond built on respect, trust, and shared growth. And as he drifted off to sleep that night, he carried with him a newfound certainty. Life could be hard, but it could also be beautiful, meaningful, and full of possibilities for those who dared to act with courage and kindness.